always concerned about Iran engaging in destabilizing activity around the globe, but overall, my sense is that what Mr. Chavez has done over the last several years has not had a serious national security impact on us.
Hey, look, we played the clip where Obama said to a Spanish-speaking broadcast journalist this. He said, what Hugo Chavez has done has not had a serious national security impact on us. Really? Well, joining us now on the Savage Nation is Eric Stakelback with his look into what Chavez has done. More importantly, why he is dangerous to the United States. I point all this out in trickle-down tyranny, Eric, so welcome back to the Savage Nation.
Michael, thanks for having me. And, we have a very interesting topic to talk about tonight. Really, this is a topic you and I have been discussing on the show here, Michael, for 2 years. And what I'm talking about is this Venezuela-Iran axis, the relationship between Hugo Chavez's Venezuela and Khamenei's Iran, an unholy alliance in our backyard, in the Western Hemisphere, with its sights firmly set on the United States. Now, why we are talking about it, Michael, the big news hook this week is that President Obama, in an interview with a Latin American television network, said that he does not believe that Hugo Chavez and Venezuela present any sort of a serious national security threat. And he said that in response to a question about that Venezuela-Iran relationship. So the president basically believes that Hugo Chavez is just a buffoonish clown, a blowhard who can be ignored and who is no threat to U.S. interests. Well, this is beyond comprehension. Either the president is willfully blind to what's going on in our backyard and what Chavez is up to, or he's hopelessly naive and ignorant, or it's a combination of both, which is probably the most likely answer, Michael. Here's the deal. Hugo Chavez, why he is such a national security threat to the U.S. Number one, geography. Venezuela is in our hemisphere, at our doorstep, and he has made it clear that he is an enemy of America. But look, conventionally, Venezuela's conventional forces, they can't defeat us. They're not a threat to us conventionally. The problem and the threat from Venezuela and from Chavez emanates not so much from him, but from the company he keeps. This is a man who has close alliances with avowed enemies of America, Iran, North Korea, Syria, but in particular Iran. Chavez is dangerous to our national security interest, contrary to what the president says, because of his close brotherly relationship with Iran. And Michael, we have documented it time and time again here on the show. Look, Iran has a massive presence in Venezuela, and wherever Iran goes, Hezbollah follows. They are also there in Venezuela. And what they're doing, Michael, they're doing it in Venezuela. They're spreading their tentacles throughout Latin America through Venezuela, are the Iranians. Here are some of the things they're doing. We just discovered in the past few months that Iran is helping Venezuela develop drones. Now, I wonder why Hugo Chavez would want drones. Number two, we know from credible reports that Iran is planning to build missile bases in Venezuela. Now, why would Iran want to do that? Who would their target potentially be? Obviously, it's us. They have mid-range missiles. They're working on long-range missiles as we speak. And if Iran establishes a missile base in Venezuela at our doorstep, the U.S. mainland, in the very least Florida and say the Panama Canal, will be in their sights. That's why they're doing it.
Why are these fascist nations working together?
Michael, this Iran-Venezuela relationship is the epitome of the unholy alliance between the hardcore left and hardcore Islamist. Look, Chavez is a committed Marxist socialist tyrant, without a doubt. Doesn't seem to have much in common with hardcore Sharia-following Islamists on the surface. But the enemy of my enemy, there it is again, is my friend. And we see the radical left and radical Islamists, Marxists and the sons of Sharia, time and time again, Michael, working lockstep. Why? Because they have a shared goal, a shared interest in destroying Judeo-Christian Western civilization. That's what binds them together, and their main target in that mission is clearly the United States, with Israel as a close second. That's what binds these unholy forces together, and that's why Chavez and the Iranians are in bed together big time. And contrary to the president's insane statement, which, by the way, I mean, it has to embolden Chavez and Ahmadinejad, right? Obama saying, oh, it's not a threat, we're not concerned about it. Doesn't that have to have the Iranians and the Venezuelans licking their chops? They're probably saying to themselves, hey, we're building missile bases, we're mining for uranium here, we're sponsoring terrorism here, we have Hezbollah training here on our soil, and Obama isn't even worried about it. He doesn't even think it's a threat at all. So we'll just merrily go along and keep building missile bases here and training terrorists and putting the U.S. in our crosshairs, while Obama either willfully ignores it or just is asleep at the wheel.
Aren't there any other nations worried about what is going on with Venezuela?
Well, look, in the Western Hemisphere, Michael, we have Colombia, which is Venezuela's neighbor to the west, is seriously concerned about Hugo Chavez and what Iran is doing there. For years, he has sponsored the FARC, F-A-R-C, narco-terrorists, drug smugglers, who have been a huge problem on Colombian soil. Chavez has sponsored these guys. He's a sponsor of not only Islamic terror, but narco-terror as well, and he's heavily involved in the transatlantic drug trade, which is a big deal, shipping cocaine from Venezuela, heroin from Venezuela to Africa, and then up into Europe. Chavez is a player in that transatlantic drug trade. This guy has his fingers in so many evil anti-American pies and plots that it makes your head spin. Yet Obama says, we're not worried about him. He's not a real national security threat. I'm not really concerned. This sends exactly the wrong message, not only to the American people, but to Chavez and Iran. It sends a message to the bad guys, Michael, that we're not being vigilant and that we have no idea what's going on in our backyard. Because for President Obama and the way he's framed this, he's framed himself, Michael, in the run-up to the election as some fierce terror warrior because he got bin Laden. Actually, the Navy SEALs got bin Laden, but Obama says, I got bin Laden, so therefore I'm a foreign policy genius. Really, that's the linchpin that the bedrock of his foreign policy, that Osama bin Laden is dead and he's killed al-Qaeda terrorists via drone strikes in Pakistan. Hey, I'm not shedding tears that bin Laden's dead. Anyone from al-Qaeda is dead. That's a good thing. But that's a counterterrorism operation. Foreign policy is much broader than a counterterrorism operation. And while we have killed al-Qaeda leaders, and that's a great thing, in the meantime, larger threats this president has allowed to materialize. He's actually empowered in many cases, Michael, in such a dangerous way.
Well, like what?
Number one, Iran. Number two, Hezbollah. Number three, the Muslim Brotherhood. All three greater threats long-term and short-term than al-Qaeda, in my view. He's targeted al-Qaeda. That's great. But in the meantime, Iran, Hezbollah, Muslim Brotherhood are ascendant. Guys like Hugo Chavez working with these forces are ascendant. So he's focused on al-Qaeda, and he's selling the American people a bill of goods that he's got some great foreign policy, that he's some terror warrior because he's killed some al-Qaeda guys. Meanwhile, by the way, Michael, not to get too off topic here, I'm talking about al-Qaeda. Okay, we've killed leaders. We've killed bin Laden. We've killed al-Awlaki. That's great. They're bad guys. But little-known fact, al-Qaeda actually covers more geographical ground today than it did on 9/11. From Afghanistan, Pakistan, down to Yemen, to Somalia, to North Africa, to Europe, to Sinai. Al-Qaeda is actually expanding geographically. So no, Mr. President, you haven't defeated al-Qaeda as you've been trumpeting. Al-Qaeda is near defeat. You haven't defeated them. They're actually expanding geographically, and your foreign policy is a complete and utter shambles, which is seeing Islamist regimes come to power throughout North Africa and the Middle East. But Michael, never worry, because President Obama tells us all these radical Islamists who are coming to power thanks to this so-called Arab Spring are moderate. We can deal with these guys. The Muslim Brotherhood are very reasonable men. That's what he's selling the American people. It's dangerous. If Mitt Romney has a clue his team, his camp, could hammer Obama on foreign policy from now to Election Day. And this Venezuela comment is just the latest thing that he can use against Obama. I don't know if Romney's going to do it. If he's smart, he will do it, because Romney's focusing jobs, economy. Okay, rightfully so. But look, there's such an opening here to hit Obama on foreign policy. He is endangering America. And talk about Iran and Chavez, might I mention that Iran is still very, very close to acquiring nuclear weapons?
Well, what's next?
You know, I think, Michael, and I hate to say this, but I think the 4 months or so we have until the election, I think a lot could happen. You know, we could wake up one day. Intelligence estimates are all over the place about Iran's nuclear weapons program. We could wake up one day, turn on Fox, CNN, whatever, and see that perhaps Israel is in the process of bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. Or perhaps we'll wake up one morning and see that Iran has successfully tested a nuclear bomb. That could happen in the next 4 months. There's a possibility, a good possibility, that Israel will strike Iran's nuclear facilities in the next few months. They might hold off. They might do it after the election. Okay, but it's coming. I see no scenario, Michael, and you and I have discussed it on the show before, I see no scenario under which Israel will accept a nuclear Iran. I just can't see it. Will the U.S. do something? Look, if Iran acts first, if Iran, say, moved to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, where a fifth of the world's oil passes through, or if Iran carried out a terror attack on U.S. soil or against U.S. interest, we would be forced to respond in some way against Iran. That could happen in the next 4 months, too. A lot could happen. I don't think that Obama would hit Iran's nuclear facilities. I just don't think. Every fiber of his being is against it. Israel will. Only question is before or after the elections. That's coming. And the main thing here, we're talking about Chavez, Michael, the main reason Iran is in the Western Hemisphere, not only in Venezuela, but spreading their tentacles into Ecuador, Bolivia, Argentina, Cuba. The main reason Iran's doing that is not a coincidence. They're doing it with us in mind. They have, in Latin America, in Venezuela, they have a forward base to strike America. It's obvious. It's clear. So if things blow up, literally, in the Middle East over the next few months, and Iran wants to retaliate against America, they don't have to do it from thousands and thousands of miles away in the Middle East. They will be right in our backyard in Latin America. Makes it much easier for them to strike against American interest, whether it's on U.S. soil or, say, a U.S. embassy in Colombia or wherever, a U.S. embassy in Brazil, Argentina, maybe a Jewish target, a synagogue. They have a track record, do the Iranians, of striking Israeli targets. They blew up the Israeli embassy in Argentina in 1992 and a Jewish community center there in 1994. There's a track record here. It's dangerous. It's a real threat. It's one of the things I'm most concerned about, actually, Michael, I have to say, is Iran's presence in Latin America at our doorstep. But our president, this administration, are completely oblivious to this threat, and I'm afraid it's going to come back to bite us.
Eric Stakelback, thanks again for being on the Savage Nation.
Michael, thanks for having me as always. You can check out my book, The Terrorist Next Door, How the Government is Deceiving You About the Islamist Threat. I talk much more about that Iran-Venezuela relationship in the book. Thanks again.
It's Rock and Roll Friday on the Savage Nation.
Up in the morning and out.